"Where's your family now, old bum?" That was the first thing he said, loud, cruel, in front of the gas station, broad daylight with two teenagers filming on their phones and a cashier frozen behind bulletproof glass. He didn't whisper it. He wanted it to land, wanted me to feel it. My name is Walter Briggs, 66 years old, retired Command Sergeant Major, United States Army, 32 years of service, 5 deployments overseas. I've led patrols through IED zones, carried men out of firefights. I've given orders under fire, stitched wounds with a pocket knife, and stood watch over the dying in places most people couldn't pronounce. I've faced enemies with rifles, blades, and explosives, but none of that prepared me for the sound of my coffee cup cracking against the pavement because some punk in a leather jacket thought I looked like an easy target. He shoved me hard. No warning. I stumbled back into the ice machine, caught myself on the edge. My cane clattered across the pavement. My back hit metal, hard, and my coffee, the only thing I had looked forward to that morning, exploded on the ground. He laughed. Loud, nasal, proud of himself. His 2 friends joined in. One of them took a picture. That's how it goes now. A man like me gives half his life to something bigger than himself, and in the end, all people see is a worn coat, a slow walk, and a grey beard. I didn't say a word. No threats, no lectures, no plea for decency. I reached into my coat, pulled out a white card, and held it out to him. "Check your wallet," I said. His smirk twitched. He took a step back, confused. Then he reached behind him, pulled out his wallet, flipped it open. His ID was gone. In its place, a white card, just like the one in his hand. Smile. "You're already surrounded." He blinked, looked around. The younger one stopped laughing. The third one muttered something and shifted his weight like he was ready to run. I bent down, picked up my cane, straightened my coat, then, without looking back, walked over to the bench near the propane tanks. I sat, crossed one leg slowly over. The other lifted what was left of my coffee cup and took a sip. Cold, bitter, no sugar. Just how I've always taken it. From my inner pocket, I took out a small black remote, pressed it once. No sound, just a red light, steady. Across the street, a sedan that hadn't moved in 20 minutes flickered its headlights once, then turned off. None of them followed me. None of them spoke. And I didn't need to say another word. People assume I'm homeless. Maybe. It's the truck, a 98 F-150, with more rust than paint. Maybe it's the way I sit for hours outside the Sinclair on Route 92, nursing the same coffee until it turns cold twice. Or maybe it's because I don't talk much. I watch. They think I'm invisible. That helps. Truth is, I've got a small pension. Enough for gas, basic groceries, and the occasional oil change. The truck's got a cot in the back, a cooler, and a case for my uniforms I haven't opened in years. There's a box, too. Inside, 3 medals, 1 folded flag, a letter signed by a president I didn't vote for. I don't look at them often. I spend most mornings at the station, not because I need to, but because Miguel works there. Kids, maybe 20, smart, honest, doesn't ask questions, he doesn't need answers. 2. Calls me sir, even though I told him not to. He lets me refill my cup without charging. I fix things for him in return, a busted door hinge, the receipt printer, a leaking mop sink in the back. We don't talk much, just enough. Last month, I stopped a guy from shortchanging him, quietly, no scene, just put my hand on the counter and looked the man in the eye. He left. Miguel never mentioned it. But the next day, he handed me a fresh cup without asking. Said, "On the house. Respect comes quiet. Back in the day, I used to run logistics in active zones, convoys, comms, exit plans. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but when things fell apart, mine was the voice people listened to. You learn to see patterns, and lately, the patterns at the station have changed. 3 weeks ago, a group of bikers started hanging around, didn't buy anything. Just lingered. They parked across 3 spaces, left their engines running, tossed trash on the ground, asked Miguel if the place had cameras. He said yes. One of them smiled and said, "Good to know." I watched from the bench. They left after 10 minutes, but they came back, again and again. Last week, Miguel's bike tires got slashed. Day after that, I saw the back dumpster had been broken into. Beer cans, grease-stained gloves. Someone had been digging. Miguel asked me if I thought. It was serious. I told him, "Watch the patterns, not the noise." He nodded. Didn't ask what I meant. 2 nights later, I moved some things in my truck, pulled a locked case from under the cot. Inside, a stack of old IDs, an encrypted USB, and a contact sheet that hasn't seen daylight in a decade. I wasn't planning anything, just preparing, in case this wasn't just kids looking to cause trouble, in case this was something worse. They didn't stop. They multiplied. By the 2nd week, there were 5 of them, sometimes 6. They arrived in pairs, staggered, never all at once. Like, they were testing patterns, looking for response time. No license plates on 2 of the bikes. One had a temporary tag, half ripped. Every visit followed a rhythm. First the intimidation, slow laps around the pumps, then the noise, revving engines, shouting jokes, calling Miguel by name without being invited to, and then the silence. Watching, loitering, leaning on the storefront like they owned it. At first, customers stopped coming, then delivery trucks started turning around in the lot. Miguel tried putting up a sign that said, "Under surveillance." They laughed and took a picture with it. Then came the thefts, snacks, cleaning supplies, fuel, always small things. Always just under the threshold of a police report worth investigating. One night, they shattered a backlight on the ice freezer and left a pile of smashed beer bottles in the alley. No prints, no footage, just glass and stench. Miguel filed reports. Nothing came of it. I offered to help reinforce the back door. He said, "You think they'll break in?" I said, "They already did." He didn't respond, just handed me a screwdriver and went back inside. The next morning, I found a switchblade stuck into the front right tire of my truck. Not slashed, stabbed. Precision. Whoever did it wanted me to see it. I removed it slowly, wrapped it in a rag, and slid it into my glove box next to a folder labeled Utilities. There was nothing left to pretend about. They weren't just bullies. This was pressure, coordinated, rehearsed. Someone wanted this station shut down. Someone with just enough brain to avoid direct confrontation, and just enough power to think. They'd get away with it. What they didn't know is, I've dealt with people like that before, in places where power doesn't come with a badge, and silence is just another tactic. Back in Kandahar, we had a term for this kind of escalation. Shaping the terrain, you don't attack the target. You surround it, make it weak, make it tired, then you move in. That's what they were doing to Miguel, to this place, to me. And it was working. Until the day they crossed a line they couldn't walk back from. It was a Tuesday, overcast, quiet. Miguel came to work late. His lip was split, shirt untucked, eyes distant. He didn't say what happened, but I saw the red outline on his collarbone. Someone had grabbed him, hard. That was the last straw for me, not because I was angry. I don't waste energy on that anymore, but because there's one thing I never tolerated in uniform, and never will out of it, men who corner the weak and call it strength. That night, I moved everything out of the truck bed, pulled the panel under the cot, took out the old duffel bag I hadn't touched in 7 years. Inside was a flash drive, a burner phone, and a hard copy contact list with names I hadn't spoken aloud since retirement. I sat in the cab, engine off, and wrote 3 of them down, 1 in Virginia, 1 in Texas, 1 just 4 counties over. The first call would go out tomorrow, and the second, that one would be in person. The first call went out at 07:16 on a Wednesday, payphone. Old one. Still worked if you knew how to kick the line live. "Briggs here," I said. That was enough. No name required on the other end. Just silence, then a breath. "I've got a local." problem. Need confirmation on a name, possible affiliations, and anything interstate. The voice responded, "Send the tags." I hung up. That afternoon, I pulled out the burner phone. Snapped 3 photos. The lead biker's temporary plate, the fake ID he dropped last week, a zoomed-in image of a snake tattoo across his knuckles. I sent it to a single contact. Martin Salvo. Former CID investigator turned legal compliance officer for a national freight company. Also, the guy who once pulled a mole out of a NATO security group using nothing but a voicemail trail. Martin texted back within an hour. Name's Clive Pennick. Multiple priors, grand theft auto, possession with intent. No current warrants, but he's dirty. Clive. Now the face had a name. I started digging local, asked around quietly. The old mechanic down the street said someone had been sniffing around. About buying the gas station, a private group. Cash deal, Miguel hadn't heard anything. But 2 nights later, someone dropped a flyer under the door. We buy ugly properties. Cash offer in 3 days. No questions asked. No logo, no website, just a phone number. I called it from the payphone. Yeah? That was the entire greeting. I said, I'm interested in selling a property that's being watched. They hung up, smiled. The next day I went into town, not to shop, to speak. First, I visited a retired sheriff named Dan Keller. Man I hadn't seen in 12 years. He once asked me to speak to a group of young deputies about decision-making under fire. Said, it was the quietest they'd ever been. He didn't shake my hand. He hugged me. I told him what was happening, just facts. No emotion. He nodded and said, we'll find a way to put eyes on them without tipping our hand. Then I walked 2 blocks and knocked on the side door of the VFW post. Inside I found Ray Moreno, Vietnam vet, now a civil attorney who handled veteran affairs. I showed him a printed sheet with Clive Pennick's face, tattoo and rap sheet. Ray didn't ask how I got it. He just said, give me 2 days. By Friday, I had a folder. Inside, state business records tied to Clive's cousin, a shell company used to purchase low-value real estate, a pattern of intimidation complaints, none of which went anywhere. This wasn't just some punks with bikes. It was a pipeline, and someone had clearly decided this gas station was next. But what they didn't know is what they couldn't know was that this station had a guardian now, and I wasn't playing defense. I wanted them to feel it. Not the fight, the shift. So I left a small envelope on the counter. Miguel opened it that night. Inside, a printed report with 3 mugshots, a burner phone, and a single message. If anything happens, press 1. Say nothing. He didn't ask where it came from, just nodded once and locked the doors behind me. They showed up on a Monday, 3 bikes. Mid-morning, no helmets this time, no smiles either. Clive was in front. Miguel tensed up behind the counter. I was seated, where I always sat. Bench by the propane tanks, coffee in hand, newspaper folded but unread. They parked without turning the engines off. One walked toward the station. Another circled back toward the alley. And Clive, he walked straight toward. Me got something to say, old man? I didn't look at him. I didn't even blink. I just reached into my coat and handed him a sealed envelope. He stared at it, didn't take it. So I placed it on the bench beside me and said, hand that to the man parked across the street in the blue sedan. His eyes flicked up. The sedan hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Tinted windows, engine off. You think I'm scared of a parked car? I sipped my coffee, then said, you should be scared of what's inside that envelope. He took it, walked back across the lot, handed it off like I told him. Within 4 minutes, the first unmarked car pulled in from the service road, followed by 2 cruisers, then a black SUV with state plates. Clive's crew tried to split, but the alley was already blocked. 3 officers stepped out in tactical gear. Calm, coordinated. Miguel locked the doors from the inside. Quiet, no panic. Clive was on the ground in 40 seconds, face down, cuffed. The envelope had contained A signed affidavit from a retired sheriff, a legal summary prepared by Ray Moreno, photos, timestamps and GPS logs, and a federal document flagging Clive's cousin's shell company for real estate fraud tied to extortion, all of it. Admissible. As he was loaded into the back of the cruiser, Clive locked eyes with me and said, "You set this up." I stood, walked up slowly, just close enough for him to hear me through the window, and said, "I could have ruined your name. Sent. Your face to every paper. Put you on a list that doesn't expire." He stared back, confused, bitter. "But I didn't," I said, "because you're not worth the noise." Then I turned, walked away. The gas station stayed open. Miguel put up. New cameras. Reinforced the back door. People started coming back. Regulars, families, truckers who didn't even know it had been unsafe. They never knew what almost happened, and that's how it should be. I didn't ask for credit, didn't give interviews, didn't explain. A week later, I helped Miguel replace the broken freezer panel. Quiet job. Just screws and sealant. When we finished, he offered me a fresh cup of coffee, didn't say anything, he didn't have to. That afternoon, I drove out of town, no map, no destination, just west. The sun was low. Truck steady, road open. I pulled off. Near an empty field, parked, climbed into the back, sat with the tailgate down, took out the old metal box, opened it. Inside, medals, papers, a photo of a unit no one remembers but me. I closed the lid, secured the latch. Then I poured myself a coffee from the thermos. Black. Bitter. No sugar. Just how I've always taken it. I watched the horizon in silence. Didn't think, didn't speak, just listened to the stillness, to what peace sounds like when you stop trying to prove anything. They called me useless. I let them think that.
The gentleman's revenge isn't loud, but it's always personal. If this felt personal, make it personal. Subscribe now, and don't miss tomorrow's story.